You got some notes there?
I have notes. I have my phone.
Yeah.
You have your phone.
Yeah, you're prepared.
I have coffee.
Yeah, that's the most important.
That's important.
It's very important. Hey, Chad.
Hey, what?
Why couldn't the bicycle stand by itself?
I don't know, Mike. Why?
It's too tired.
Too tired. Bicycle.
Uh-huh.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Lunchtime Tech Talk. I'm Chad.
And I'm Mike. Hey, Chad.
Yeah, bud.
What do you think we should talk about today?
Today, we're talking about batteries and tools that use batteries and that sort of realm.
Ooh, like cordless drills?
Cordless drills.
Maybe lawn equipment?
Lawn equipment.
Okay.
Circular table saws.
Whoa.
Like whatever you can think of that uses a battery. We're going to kind of discuss the basics of batteries and then kind of where some of the technology is. So, our show is called Lunchtime Tech Talk.
Mm-hmm.
What's tech stand for?
Technology.
Yeah. Well, today it stands for technical.
Oh.
So, we're going to start with a little lesson, and I hope not to be too boring, but we've got to build some building blocks here.
All right, let's build them.
Right? So, most batteries have some sort of voltage rating on them.
Mm-hmm.
And just to give a little backstory, I've been looking at mowers because my mower engine tried to fall through my mower deck
That's a problem.
at the start of this spring.
You don't want that happening when that blade is spinning around because it might turn into a helicopter.
I totally scalped part of my yard, like a small spot. Because you know how, like, it's a push mower.
Mm-hmm.
So you get that grass buildup and you kind of bang it on the ground and get that shook out, right?
Yeah, right.
So I had a rusted through smallish hole that was gorilla taped up so that grass didn't come flying out of it.
It's
right?
kind of like the whole thing. If you can't see the rust, it's not there.
Exactly.
So you just put tape over
Tape.
it.
And it kept the grass from falling out
Gotcha.
where it doesn't need to.
Right.
Well, over the winter, first of all, rookie mistake 10 years in to owning homes.
Mm-hmm.
I never cleaned up my mower that last time because I thought there was one more mow.
Yeah, what's the point, you know? Just let that
wet
funky
grass just hang all winter.
Yeah.
So anyway, I ended up with a rust spot that wasn't visible halfway around my deck, starting at that hole.
Seems like a problem.
Yeah. So the first time I banged my mower on the ground, like, it just broke apart and the blades went down and hit the dirt.
Oh, gosh.
And I mowed my yard the whole rest of the time, like popping a wheelie.
Oh, man.
Like trying to keep the front wheels off the ground.
Please don't fall through.
Or
fully.
come flying out. Like, I was legitimately a little concerned.
Yeah, because you know your feet are not that far away from
They're
it.
not real far back.
And you need those.
And probably,
Yeah.
if everything comes apart, the engine's not going to kill instantly. Where's that thing going to go?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, what happens when the engine falls through? Does it die? How long does it take to die?
You know, these are all great questions.
Do you die? I mean...
So, I've been looking for a few years. A couple of years ago, I thought it died. It's a Honda.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those things
Good engine.
run forever,
Yeah.
right? Air filter was real clogged up. Replace the air filter, replace the spark plugs, good to go.
Yeah.
This thing was used when I got it 10 years ago.
Nice.
And all I've done is oil changes, gas, obviously.
Yeah. Right.
Sharpen the blades, change out that air filter once, put in a new spark plug.
Yeah.
In 10 years.
Typical type maintenance.
Yeah. Just normal stuff.
And
right?
what's crazy is the engine didn't die. It was the rusted deck.
The deck, right? So I'm trying to decide if I should, like, call up a small engine place and see if they'll buy it from me.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, the engine's still good,
Yeah.
you know?
Why not?
So anyway.
You should make a little helicopter out of it.
I could tie my kids to
You
it.
could put it on your bike. Forget
Oh,
e-bikes.
snap!
Forget e-bikes.
Fan bike.
Honda mower bike.
Fan bike, like a fan boat in the Everglades.
It's not dangerous. Oh, man.
I'll put a cage back there. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it's safe.
So anyway, that's where this all started. I need a new mower. I started looking at things. My buddy Mike, that's sitting in the seat next to me.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh.
Said, have you looked at electric mowers?
Electric mowers.
And I go, yeah, I saw them. I mean, they're on the page that I scrolled through. But
first off, they're tiny.
Yeah.
Like 5 inches.
Well, what I had seen was
Secondly, you're not a man if you're using an electric mower.
I didn't say any of that.
No, you didn't.
Stop painting me into this corner. I did say all I saw was 16 inches, and I currently have 21, and I really don't want to lose 5 inches per swipe.
Yeah, because it's like, that would take you like 40 more minutes to mow your yard.
It already takes me an hour to an hour and a half after I've, weed eated and everything.
Yeah.
And so I was not looking to add
I don't know why.
all that extra time.
I don't know why you wouldn't want to add extra time.
Right. So
Mowing's so fun.
So that's what started this search, because Mike said, hey, I have a Kobalt and it's 21 inches and I love it. You should borrow it.
It's the bomb.
So I'm borrowing it.
The bomb of push mowers.
The bomb of push mowers. So yours is a 40 volt. 80 volt, sorry. It's 80 volt. And what voltage is it's the difference in electric potential between the positive and negative terminals of a battery. The greater the difference between those buildups, the greater the voltage. So yours has potential energy of 80 volts, which is twice as much as a 40 volt.
Look, I know a lot about technology, but I'm not a scientist, so I'm going to believe you on everything you say. You could tell me that it's wizards in this can that I plug into the mower and the wizards make it work, so that sounded really good.
Great. So your battery has a negative pole and a positive pole.
Negative wizard and a positive wizard.
A negative wizard and a positive wizard. And the motion of electrons from the negative pole to the positive pole when connected to a circuit is what gives you power.
That makes sense.
Okay? So voltage is only a measure of the potential energy. So a bowling ball held at 100 feet up in the air has more potential energy than a bowling ball held at 10 feet up in the air. It's going to hurt worse when it hits you.
Yeah.
Right?
I would say.
But that's only if it free falls. If someone lowers it slowly from 100 feet and rests it on your lap, that doesn't hurt.
No.
Right?
That's how you'd want it done. You wouldn't want them to drop it.
Right. So really high voltage sounds scary. Caution 10,000 volts.
Right.
But if the current is low, it can be not dangerous.
So the current could kill you.
The current can kill you. So current is volts divided by resistance. So if you have really high volts and no resistance, that stuff's running through you and you're dead.
Really high volts and no resistance. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So the only thing that affects what I just said is something called the Puker Effect. I never saw a pronunciation, but it's Peukert.
Okay, I was gonna say, it's like, is that the effect? Is that like the nausea that you get
Right,
whenever
puke,
when you get shocked?
So what this says is, as the rate of discharge increases, the total available capacity decreases.
Well, that makes sense.
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. So if you think I have 100 total amps to use, if I use it faster than what is recommended, of course the battery's going to die quicker.
Right.
But I'm also not going to get all 100 amps.
Oh.
I'm going to get like 86 amps.
Okay.
Total.
Okay.
And there's a complicated equation. We're not going to get into that, but just know that most batteries you see, as far as I could tell, are rated at a 20-hour discharge rate. So when you see 80 volt battery, 2 amp hours, what that means is that, I'm going to get this wrong.
It's okay. We're not scientists. We just play them on podcasts.
Yeah. So the example that I wrote down to remind myself, if you have a 100 amp hour battery, rated at 20 hours, you get 5 amps per hour discharged over that 100 over that 20 hours.
Okay.
To total 100 amps.
Okay.
Now, if instead of discharging at 5 amps per hour, you discharge at 15 amps per hour, so you're using more of it at a given time. Instead of, you would expect your 100 amps to last you 6 hours and 40 minutes.
Okay.
But what actually happens is you get 5 hours and 20 minutes.
Okay.
And that's because the actual...
Because you're discharging more?
Yeah. And so...
At a faster rate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that's sort of how it all...
So basically they want to be, whenever you buy something that's like rated, 80 volts at 2 amp hours.
Right.
Kobalt in this instance is like regulating how much draw that battery has so they can get the most out of that 2 amp battery.
Sort of.
Kind of?
Sort of, yeah.
Okay.
So you can't, when you plug that into your mower, you can't expect it to run for 2 hours.
Right.
Because the draw rate's different.
Yeah.
But it has been tested at whatever hour ratage.
Okay,
because
so that 20 that 2 amp hours is a test of 20 hours. Is that how they got that 2 amp hours? So that's like an industry standard. Like we're gonna test this for 20 hours. This does 2 amp hours, and that's what we can say this 80 volt battery has.
So that's how you can compare one battery to another. So under similar circumstances. A 5 amp hour battery is going to last longer than a 2 amp hour battery.
Okay, I got you. So you would want, if you have an 80 volt, 40 volt, 20 volt, whatever the battery is, if you have the option to get a higher amp hour, it's going to potentially run that tool longer because that amp hour is bigger.
That is correct.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. And so... the reason that that's important, so in my research anyway, what I found is if it's not stated, then it's probably tested over 20 hours.
Okay.
Some of them are tested over like 100 hours, and we're talking like something that you expect to turn on and just run. So they were talking about like water pumps.
Oh, okay.
And some of that sort of stuff where you're just going to... It's not like a mower where it's going to be ramping up and ramping down and all of that kind of stuff. It's just on. Yeah.
Okay.
And so you would expect that to run steady longer, and so they've rated it at such.
Yeah.
And so you can't just look at 2 amp hours or 4 amp hours. You do kind of need to know what discharge rate it was tested at, because that changes the equation. So
like if, for instance, but for the consumer, this could be potentially easier based off of the brand and the product they're buying, right? So if you go buy a Kobalt mower and you see it comes with an 80 volt 2 amp hour battery, but you see they have this thing called I don't know what they call it, super long lasting battery, and you're like, well, it looks the exact same, but it's just got 5 amp hours. Like, what does that do? You can know that they probably tested those batteries on the same scale, and because it's for that particular product. And you can, with brand new batteries in the same weather condition, expect that 5 amp hour battery to last 2.5 times longer than your 2 amp hour battery. See, that's really cool. That's really good knowledge, because you see these batteries and they're the exact same size. You instantly, my mind thinks old school, like, well, you got to have a bigger battery pack. Right. But you really don't. It could be the same size battery. They could have just packed more stuff in it or whatever they do to get it to that 5 amp hour. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. So now whenever I go buy batteries for things, I can look and see like, oh, there's a 2 amp hour and there's a 3 amp hour. Well, it's $10 more. I'll get the 3 amp hour because it'll last longer. Right. Right. Yeah, and like so don't just look at 12 volt, 48 volt, 80 volt. Like, don't just look at the voltage. Mm-hmm. Also be mindful of this amp hour thing. So would the voltage be used for a more powerful motor, like electric motor? Could you do they put a bigger motor in a mower that is 80 volt versus 40 volt? Do you know?
So there was something else I saw. This was just kind of a little infographic. And it said comparing batteries based on amp hours is like comparing cars without engines, which is why I said you need to look at both volts and amp hours. Okay. So what they equated it to is volts is your engine size and amp hours is your fuel tank.
Okay.
So your 80 volts gives you more potential energy than your 40 volts.
Right, so you could have a bigger motor, but it might consume more power.
Right.
So you would need an 80 volt with, like if you had a 40 volt at 2 amp hours and an 80 volt at 2 amp hours and they were running the same motor, the 80 volt would potentially not last as long because it might drink more power.
The 40 volts probably not going to last as long.
Okay.
Because it's smaller to start with.
Okay.
On the same motor.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. Oh yeah, on the same motor.
Yeah. So what you end up with is a new rating called watt hours that I didn't really I didn't get into too much because I found this kind of late in the game.
Okay.
But so volts is engine size, amp hours is fuel tank size, watt hours is your run time, and so.
So that's probably more potentially what a lot of people are going to want to look at if you can find something with watt hours.
Yeah, and you're going to struggle to find that on something.
Yeah.
But so they have the infographic has a 40 volt battery with 5 amp hours, a 60 volt battery with 4 amp hours, which isn't apples to oranges, and that upsets me. But then they have an 80 volt at 5. So you've got 40 at 5 and 80 at 5. And you have 180 watt hours and 360. So it literally is double.
Okay. So it's double because they're basing that off of the same engine.
Because your engine is going to pull...
Or motor, I guess is what it would be. Because it's not an engine.
Right, motor.
Yeah.
So your motor is going to pull power at a steady state.
Right.
So if the potential that it has to pull is twice as big, then it's gonna last longer.
Okay,
by twice as much.
That makes sense. But it doesn't necessarily mean that tool is better or worse than like a 40 volt. You know what I'm saying? Like you could buy a 40 volt mower from Kobalt and it could last you an hour and a half based off the batteries it gets, and it might do just as good a job as the 80 volt. But the 80 volt has probably the potential to be a more powerful motor.
And here's what I noticed when I was looking. I noticed when I was looking at mowers is if it's an 80 volt, they give you 1 battery with the mower, and if you buy a 40 volt, they give you 2 batteries.
Yeah. See, that's weird because back when I bought mine, they gave me 2 batteries, but I think it's because of the amp hours.
It's a 2 amp hour. Yeah. And so now they're pretty standard at 5. What I noticed
Which is crazy because I bought my mower and it has an 80 volt and it came with 2 batteries that are 2 amp hours, and now you can get 1 battery, which seems deceiving. Like to me, it's like as a consumer, I'm like, I want 2 batteries. It's better, but that 1 battery has the potential of lasting longer than my 2 batteries do together.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So Kobalt has in their 80 volt package, they have a self-propelled and a not self-propelled.
Okay.
The self-propelled is a 6 amp hour because you're using more energy.
More wizards.
To get the wheels to turn.
Yeah.
It's not just the blade, you also need the wheels to turn.
Yeah.
And then the push mower is 5 amp hours.
Yeah.
But their runtime, so they weren't giving runtime, they were giving an acreage rating.
Okay.
Their rating was the same.
Gotcha. They offset it.
Right.
By upping the amp hours.
Right. And so they were both rated at a half to a full acre. Obviously, depending on how old your battery is, what your terrain is like, and, heat conditions. Yeah. Because all those things are going to affect your battery, just like you were talking about with your headphones.
It does. So, real quick, we'll kind of diverge and go into that.
Yeah.
A few episodes ago, I talked about how my AirPods got the worst battery life that they had ever gotten out of the 2.5 years that I've owned them on a run. It was 29 degrees. I didn't have anything covering them, like to cover my ears. And I got like 50 some minutes, I think, 48 to 50 some minutes.
And what I was curious about because I hadn't looked into it, was where the battery is located within your pods, and they're in the stem.
Yeah, so they're exposed.
They're hanging
to
out.
The cold air.
Yeah.
Well, I went on a run the other day, and it was a little bit less than 2 hours, hour 45 minutes, and I never got the low battery sound. But it was like 70 degrees outside,
right.
70, 75.
Ideal.
So that just shows you how much temperature affects batteries.
Exactly.
I went from getting less than an hour on a full charge to getting almost double that just because the weather was warmer.
Well, more than double, because you ran twice as long and didn't drain it all the way to zero.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, weather will definitely affect it. Nice thing about the mowers is that most of those mowers are being used in warmer temperatures.
Right.
And I don't see as big of an adverse effect on heat compared to the cold temperatures. Cold temperatures seem to really have a bad effect on batteries, but I know heat can.
Right.
But it's almost like it doesn't hurt them unless they get extremely hot.
Right, because they're already, like, the act of using them creates heat.
Yeah.
And so they're already used to that. And so yeah, I agree with you. I feel that, yeah, unless you're in extremes, you know, you're working inside a power plant or something.
Right.
There's probably not as much effect from hot as cold.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I think you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that I think is super cool, and I've seen this before. First time I actually ever saw one, and I don't know why I never knew of these beforehand. And it just showed me, like, other than my lawnmower, how powerful these tools are getting that are battery powered. I saw this on Seth's Bike Hacks, and he was building a little drop off in his backyard out of wood, and he had a Ryobi portable miter saw.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, having to plug in a cord and all that stuff, he took that miter saw to his backyard, no extension cords, plugged in the battery, and just used it. And I was like, that is really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, and essentially a miter saw, all it has ever had is an electric motor.
Right.
I mean, you're not going to put a gas engine on it.
Right. All you're doing is changing it from a plug to a battery, and nothing else changes.
Yeah. I was just like, I am sold on that. And then I saw the prices, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, they are a little higher.
They are,
just in general.
Just the convenience of that is so cool.
So what I've found in the mower world is that the price of a really good gas mower is about the same as the price of a really good electric mower.
Which is really interesting.
Right. And so I was doing some looking around on Consumer Reports, and back in 2017, well, so in 2016, they were like, hey, this one mower is pretty good, but I don't know, for the price, you might still want to just get a gas mower.
Right.
In 2017, 1 year later, they've got a list of 5 that they're like, these stack up against any of our top, fuel-based mowers.
Yeah.
And they were talking, they always mentioned Ego as number 1.
Right.
Which they've been around doing it for a bit.
If I could be wrong, I haven't done my research on this, but I think that Ego has only done like electric type.
I mean, it makes
equipment.
sense with the name.
Right. So obviously that's what they honed in on.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But that was 2 years ago.
Right.
So they've only gotten better in 2 years.
Well, whenever I first bought that Kobalt 80 volt mower, and we know now that it has a 2 amp hour battery, and it came with 2 of them, that was probably 3, maybe 4 years ago. And now the batteries they'll last you even longer for 1. Right. So the technology's come a long way. And honestly, like I said, I've been super impressed with this push mower. So, I mean, you went from using a gas mower and looking at buying a gas mower, having a gas mower in a digital cart at a certain store. Paid for. And then you texted me, and I was like, why don't you just try my electric mower and see what you think? And you're like, okay. So you tried it.
Yeah.
You got it. You tried it.
Yeah.
give me your rundown. Comparison between going from only using a gas mower to using using electric mower, and like what are the pros and cons that you have found just from your one use that you've had?
Well, first of all, we're doing an episode about it.
Yeah.
So
you're super stoked.
So it's good, right? But here's the thing. So, like I said, I had a Honda. It was self-propelled. It's a one-pull start. Like, it's a good mower.
High quality.
So I'm not coming from, your $78.
Your Murray.
Right. I wasn't going to list a brand, but
sorry,
whatever.
Murray, but you're
I was going to say Walmart mower. Everyone knew what I was talking about, right? Yeah. And so even last year, I was talking to you about, like, I don't know if I want to get like a small snapper, so that I can ride around, or if I want to get another self-propelled, because last year the self-propelled part quit. And I've looked online, and it's super easy to fix that. Yeah. I'm just not going to do it.
Well, especially not now.
Especially
now
not
your
now.
mower's trying to kill you.
Right. And so I've been pushing this mower that is designed to be self-propelled.
Which is the worst. It's so heavy.
It is heavy.
Because of all that extra stuff, and you wouldn't think it would be that bad, but pushing a self-propelled mower is like trying to push a mower through sand.
Yes. So your mower has a steel deck. It's not all plastic. When these mowers first came out, they were fully plastic because, like, they were trying, like, that's where they were going.
Right.
But then people realized, well, that's, it looks like a toy.
Yeah, you don't.
It feels like a toy. It's way too light. Like,
your neighbor makes fun of you.
Your neighbor makes fun of you. We don't know how long this plastic's going to hold up.
Right.
So all these, or I won't say all, the ones I've been looking at, all have steel decks now.
Yeah.
Like, they're a regular mower. They just happen to have a battery-powered engine.
Yeah.
Motor.
Whatever.
Right?
We know what you're saying.
And so, even with that being said, the first thing I noticed is it is super light.
Yeah. It is surprisingly light. And
it's crazy. You take a solid block of metal off the top of something, and it gets lighter.
That's weird.
Right?
Right? How does that work?
How does that work?
I'm not a physicist. Physics? Scientist.
I mean, it is physics. Weight is part of physics. The other thing is the sort of reliability part of it. I told you that mine's a one-pull start, but there have been times when, due to different things that go on with a gas engine, it doesn't turn on.
Right.
So
everybody fights that.
Yes.
I don't care how good your mower is. Everybody fights with a gas engine at least once every 2 years. Let's put it that way.
Right. Even if it does start on the first pull, I was laying on my couch last night researching this episode, and I can hear my neighbor mowing. And what I hear is this. Because his engine's surging. Right. Which is not the healthiest way for your engine to operate.
No.
So there's something wrong with it.
He's definitely got carburetor issues. I can attest to this because when I bought land, I had to get a gas-powered rider, and because the electric ones are like $20,000.
Right.
And that's not happening.
Right.
So I had a carburetor issue on one of my riders.
Let's reiterate. A rider, big-ass zero-turn rider is $20,000.
Right. Yes. These are 60-inch mowers that you ride around on and like they're NASCAR.
Yeah, we'll talk about a Ryobi later.
Yeah, and this one is very expensive because I've got a little acreage and I need to be able to mow it in less than 10 hours. So
I'd like to not spend a whole day.
Yeah. So, the surging thing. Oh, God, carburetors. I despise carburetors. I have to use a gas power mower because of my land and my refusal to spend what I could buy a new car for.
Right.
But
so it's light.
Yeah.
There's no maintenance on it.
Which is
what I was just getting at.
Yeah.
It's super reliable. Every push mower has that handle you pull back, right? So to start
safety thingy, right?
To start your Kobalt, you hold down a button and you pull that handle back.
Right. How long did it take for it to start?
Well.
Oh, okay.
On my way to 1, I went, whoa.
That's a very fast, like,
yeah,
increment of time.
Yeah.
The whoa. Whoa. The whoa is not a second.
No.
It's part of a second.
That's not even one Mississippi.
No.
Like, it's just
a whoa.
Push the button, pull the thing, and it's running.
And here's the thing. I've had that mower for 3, maybe 4 years. I can't remember when I bought it. But every single time I put a battery in that thing and I hit that button, I pull that back, it just starts.
Right.
There's no hesitation. It just, I was like, oop, I got energy. Let's go.
Right. So the other thing kind of along those lines, and I actually loved this. So, you know, when you're getting close to the end of a gas tank on your mower, you get that sputtering, and it like lets you know.
You're like, oh, this is going to die.
We're about there.
Yeah.
And in my yard, that usually means like 1.5 more stripes. And when I was mowing, so I mowed Wednesday night, it's Friday. So 2 nights ago, I'm out mowing, and I'm just walking along, listening to my podcast, and then whoop, done.
It's done.
And I love that, because it's not this annoying sound of like, oh, I'm dying, I'm dying. Like, it's just like, hey, you should we're done. This is it.
We're done. Yeah.
And it also didn't like, I didn't notice that as I was getting close to that point, like, it's not giving as much power, or it's not cutting as good, or anything like that. Like, it just ran until it didn't.
It's full power, and you don't have these weird strips in your yard where it kind of partially died and came back on. It's just like, I'm dead. Give me a new battery.
Right. So, speaking of partial strips, dude, it cut so good.
Yeah.
I have thick spots in my yard where my gas mower constantly bogged down and died. And that's just part of mowing. That's how mowing goes.
Yeah.
Not so, my friend.
Yeah, and I wonder if a lot of that is, I don't think on push mowers you really see like blade spin speed, but like if you get into like big zero turns, they talk about like
tip speed.
Yeah, how fast the tip speed is. Okay. That's how quick the blade is spinning, and usually the better the mower, the faster that speed is, and it prevents it from bogging down. Or if it's just that electric motors have like insane amount of torque.
Well, and here's the other thing. So every mower I've looked at has variable speed, and even 3 years ago yours does too. So when you're in not very tall grass or not very thick grass, the motor is at one level of trying.
Yeah.
And when it starts to get into some thicker stuff or some taller stuff, like, it just kicks up to a second gear and just powers through that stuff.
Yeah, like, it just automatically does it.
Yeah,
like, it knows.
Not a thing
it's like,
that you
hey,
have to
I'm having trouble, go.
Yeah, and so, and you can hear it, obviously, but like, and when it did that, it's not like I slowed. Like, when you're pushing a gas mower, like, you slow down and you walk slower and you lift it up and you do all these things, and I just mowed my yard.
Yeah, you just kept going, it picked up speed, and you just...
And then when I got back to the lighter stuff, it dropped back down.
Yeah.
Speed.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
It's really cool, because if you have a yard that doesn't have those thick spots, you could potentially mow for a lot longer if it stayed at that one speed. But if you do have thick spots,
it's going to pull power quicker,
and it's going to kick up by itself.
Yeah.
And then drop back down whenever it senses, hey, this grass isn't as tough, so I'm going to just drop back down to a more eco mode.
Yeah. And speaking of eco, yes, you're charging this, and unless you've got solar panels on your roof and windmills in your backyard and you're not connected to the grid at all, everything in your house causes pollution. But at point of use, there's zero emissions.
Yeah, and the big thing with that too is, if you're really concerned about the environment, I think if you're drawing from the power grid, right, there's a lot of regulations on how that power is produced.
Right.
Where if you just have like a little 2-cycle engine, that's going to produce a lot of pollution compared to like what it takes to charge that battery.
For a couple of reasons. So your car at least has exhaust regulations. Small engines don't.
Unless you're, is it California? Of course they regulate everything.
Right. But small engines don't. have any of these regulations, and so the pollutants that you're putting out are different than what comes out of your car.
Yeah.
They're worse.
I don't know much about the air pollution that these small engines do, but I do know that there is a lot of complaints about how much pollution that these small engines actually produce. Like it is an amazing amount for how small they are, from what I understand. I don't know the facts on this. I just have heard.
And the other thing, kind of what you were saying, I equate using power off the grid kind of the same way as public transportation. Yeah, the bus driving back and forth across town is polluting.
Right.
But with 15 people on it versus 15 people in 15 separate cars,
exactly.
The pollution is different.
Yeah, it is different. And the nice thing, here's the other thing about these. If you really wanted to get off the grid on your mower, it would not take a big solar panel to run this battery pack. I don't know the logistics behind it, but you're not running an entire house, right?
Right.
Like, you see those people that have solar panels, like little tiny ones like on their shed that run a light?
Yeah.
I don't know how long it would take to charge one of these, but you could probably go buy a cheap solar panel and figure out how to hook it up and charge this battery. If you were really concerned about, like, I want my mower to be completely off grid.
You probably could.
Where you couldn't do that with a gas mower.
Right. And then something that I had just accepted as part of mowing. You finish mowing and you go in and you take a shower because you stink. You
know what my wife calls that?
What?
You smell like a man.
You just smell like gas fumes and grass.
Outdoors, dirty.
Yeah.
Stinky.
But you know what?
What?
I finished mowing. I also have electric trimmer and leaf blower.
Nice.
Right? So when I got finished, absolutely zero gas equipment had been used. I came in, I sat down on the couch. My wife came over and sat by me because she wanted to show me something. And guess what she didn't complain about?
Your stinkiness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does make a big difference. I mean, you can't even describe it. Like, it's so hard to describe, like, almost like the enjoyment that you get out of using, like, an electric mower. It's a weird experience. I remember the first time I used it. I brought it home, and my wife was like, this is cool. This is another thing that Mike wants because his mower's dying.
Right.
But who knows if this will work. I had no idea if this was going to work. Nobody I knew bought one because they're all like, hey, you don't want to do that. You need a man's mower.
Right.
Gas engine, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And so I put this thing together, popped the battery in there and mowed with it. And I'm like, I can hear things around me. If my wife yells at me, she doesn't have to scream at the top of her lungs. Right.
So that's something else. I told you a few episodes ago, I'm still going to use these other headphones that I have because I just used my AirPods.
Because you don't have to...
Because it's not as loud.
Right. You can hear because... I don't know. Whenever I use my big mower at home, I've gotten to where I use ear protection.
Sure.
Because and now they're the Bluetooth ones so I can listen to podcasts and stuff. But what a lot of people do is they put headphones in with gas-powered engines, and these things are screaming, and you have to turn the volume way up, and you don't realize how loud that music is.
That's even worse.
It's terrible for you.
Because that's right in your ear.
And so you're just turning it up above the volume, and while you're mowing, you're like, oh, I can hear it. But if you didn't have that mower running, there's no way you would listen to it at that level.
When the mower cuts out, I am instantly turning stuff down.
Yeah.
I'm like, dang, that's loud.
So with this electric mower, it literally sounds like a little vacuum cleaner is what I equate it to. Like a fan. It sounds almost like a fan.
Yeah. I mean, it's not whisper quiet, but it's still even better than what I had anticipated.
Yes, it is much quieter. Now, I don't know, maybe the brand new ones could be even quieter.
Sure, because we are talking 3 years here.
Yeah, so it does make a big difference. If you're concerned about like your hearing, then the electric mower is awesome.
The last thing that I loved on the list, you have to keep a gas mower horizontal.
Yeah.
There's gas, there's oil, there's all this stuff in there.
You don't want those things going in the wrong direction.
Right. So with electric mowers, like they're all designed to fold and stand up on end.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that'll be great for storage and whatever. Well, when I got finished, I folded it up and stood it on end.
Yeah.
And then like got out my trimmer and my leaf blower to like start doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I just blew out the underside with my leaf blower.
There you go.
Because it was just standing there.
Right, yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This is cleanup.
Yeah.
My deck's going to last forever because I'm not letting
exactly
wet green grass stay under there and rotting it out.
It's little benefits like that make a big difference. Like, you don't realize like how beneficial that is, and whenever you don't have one, right?
Right.
Now you can save the 2 feet in your garage by pushing it up against the wall, folded, and you're good.
Yeah. I guess I'll say one other thing. So we were discussing, you have 2 amp hour batteries.
Mm-hmm.
The new ones are 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, equal age on battery, equal use, blah, 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 blah. The 5 should last 2.5 times longer.
Mm-hmm.
I used 2.5-ish charges.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means, since you only have 2 batteries, I had to reuse the one that I used at the beginning.
Right.
So in the time it took for that second battery to run out, the first battery was charged enough for me to finish my yard, and it didn't die on me.
Right.
That being said, those batteries are also 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah.
And they've
been in the
garage. They've been hot. They've been cold and back and forth. I have 100% confidence that for my size yard, a 5 amp hour battery, brand new,
would do the job.
Is going to do the job.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, it doesn't, I always do my front yard first.
Yeah.
In case something happens.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so let's say it dies partially through my backyard. You know what? I put it on the stand. I go weed eat. I go blow the front, and then I finish the back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what did that hurt me?
You're still doing the task, right?
Right.
You're still getting the thing done that you were going to do at the end of mowing.
Right.
You're just doing it in the middle.
But I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't either with a 5 amp hour battery. That's pretty big. I mean, I have been very happy with the 2 amp hour, but I definitely think I needed 2 batteries because it's nice to have that backup. But if your battery is big enough, you don't have to worry about that backup.
Right. Do you have a backup battery on your car?
No. I don't.
I mean, they gave it to you to one on 2 amp hours. You probably did need 2.
Right.
But they also gave it to an American who is concerned about getting rid of their gas mower. And is this thing really going to work? Well, here's a backup.
Right.
When you buy a power tool, they don't give you a backup battery.
No.
They give you one.
They give you one, and if you want more, you buy more.
And the reason, I think the reason a lot of people are probably hesitant on like a electric mower, first of all, this is not something that you buy every other year. If you're buying good mowers.
Right. Yeah, I would expect every 10 years.
Yeah.
That's just me.
So Consumer Reports say that over 10 years, an electric is cheaper than a good gas.
Okay.
Even if you're buying your gas at a lower entry point because of all the maintenance. I think that people are hesitant about them because we've used drills, and like I said, my trimmer and my leaf blower, everything I've ever used loses power before the battery's done. And so you're doing a project at your house, and the screw that you could screw in 5 minutes ago, you can't screw in now because your drill's dying.
Right.
And you are blowing your yard or your driveway off, and man, the right side blew off really easy, and now the left side's not because my battery's dying. And so there are those things where we've had this like bad taste left in our mouth. But like I said before, the mower is full power until it's not. And that's the way the motor is designed.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because of what you're using it for. And so anyway, that's just something else that, like, if that's a concern you have, let that one go, because that's not a real concern.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I think I'm going to buy an electric mower.
I don't blame you. I was sold on it. I mean, if you have acreage, it's kind of a hard deal. But if you are like most people in this world, you live in a neighborhood, you probably have somewhere between a quarter acre to a half acre yard. It just makes sense.
Did I say that these are rated a half acre to a full acre?
Oh, okay. That's pretty good. I wouldn't want to push mow a full acre.
Me neither.
That would be crazy. But you talked earlier, we talked about riders, right?
Yeah.
And I said that the zero turn ones that I had looked at for like acreage mowing are very expensive. But you said something about another rider.
So Ryobi is, and this is a cursory search, like I typed in electric mower, and this is what pulled up, along with push mowers, right? But Ryobi has a rider, and it has a 48 volt battery, so smaller than your push, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, because you talked about all the
other stuff. So the amp hours is 75.
So basically they made this weird voltage, right? I'm assuming. They made this, 48 volts sounds really weird. I'm assuming that they custom made this for this particular setup.
Well, here's the thing. 12 is super common. 12 times 4 is 48.
Okay.
So they've put 4 batteries together.
I gotcha.
I think is probably what happened.
Yeah, that math-wise makes sense.
So you've got 48 volts, you've got 75 amp hours. They are quoting it at 2 hours of runtime, which is...
That's a long time.
Yeah.
You got to think about this. All of your weight is on this thing.
Right.
And plus the weight of the mower.
Right.
And you've got a spinny blade.
Right.
And you've got to propel yourself, and it's got to be a strong enough motor to be able to get you up an incline.
Right, because most people in a small yard... I won't say most. A lot of people have a rider because of a hill that they don't want to push.
Yep.
Or they're older. Like that's... Or you just want one.
Yeah.
You know, some people just want one.
Right, because
I was thinking about getting one.
They're fun.
So this has a 31-inch cut. It's got 2 blades, which personally for me, on my yard, I wanted a 1 or a 2. I never wanted a 3. I feel like when you get that third tiny blade out there to the side, it's never in alignment with everything else, or it rolls over a hump that nothing else did. Like, it's just, you always end up with a weird cut.
Yeah.
I think.
Depending on the mower.
Right.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Depending on the mower. But, so, like I said, 2 blades, 31 inches, and it's $2,700.
Seems like a lot.
But not for a rider.
But I think if you looked at, like, Snapper, and you looked at... I don't know, another brand like...
So when I was looking at Snapper, they were, I think, $1,600. So this is another grand.
Yeah.
But when you think about how much gas you're not going to be putting in it, because a rider takes a lot more gas than a push mower.
And also how much maintenance. You don't have to go get oil changes done. You don't have to change spark plugs. You don't have to tune the carburetors.
All that stuff. And it's worse on a rider than a push.
Yes.
Something is always... just a little off.
Yeah, the level of maintenance, all you have to do is put air in the tires and make sure the blades are sharpened.
Right.
That's super easy to do.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. Yeah. I mean, I am very interested in electric zero turns when the price comes down.
Sure.
There will be a day in my life where my mower that I bought dies and I have to consider buying a new one, and if that's 5 years down the road, these zero turns that are battery powered could be much cheaper.
Yeah,
it might be in the realm of where the gas powered commercial size mowers are.
Yeah,
and I might be interested.
Yeah,
it'd be nice.
That'd be pretty sweet.
It would be cool because currently I ride around for about 3 hours on this thing, and it's loud,
right?
And the volume that I have to wear that safety protection for my ears, it's still loud, even with that on there.
Well, and the price you pay on a good zero turn, part of that is comfort.
Yeah. Oh, big time.
And so,
big time.
Yeah. So when you're talking about sitting on something in the summer outside for 3 hours at a time, like, my God, it better be somewhat comfortable.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to come back in feeling like I just fought a bull.
I know what that's like.
Yeah.
I do. That's why I put a suspension seat on mine, because it's rough. So
yeah,
we'll see if these things come down in price. I am sold on this electric thing. I mean, we talked about e-bikes last week.
Yeah.
I drive an electric car.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if I'm the right person to talk about this or the wrong person, but I've just been convinced that this is the way the future is going. These small engines are a pain in the butt to work on.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take them to a shop where most people don't know how to tune them or get them working right. Once they die, people throw them away when really they could just be repaired.
Yeah.
But they don't want to spend the money on it. Where with this electric, it's just simple. You've got a battery, you've got an electric motor, it just works. And that's the same with all these power tools.
There's multiple shops in every town for small engine repair.
Mm-hmm.
Those people don't stay in business because small engines are great.
This is true.
You know, they stay in business because they're a pain.
They are a pain. It's
the
truth.
And now, not to get political, but with all of the ethanol stuff,
mm-hmm.
small engines are a problem.
Yeah, they don't like ethanol.
They don't like it at all.
I only run premium.
I do too.
And
even then, you kind of have to worry, does my premium have ethanol in it?
I'll run premium, and then I'll run a fuel additive.
And how much more expensive is premium? Every time you buy,
Yeah.
It's just another thing.
It is. Battery powered stuff is pretty cool, and I think it's going to be what the majority of the people will be using in 10 years to push their yard. If you go to Lowe's right now or Menards or wherever, and you look at the lineup of mowers compared to what it was a couple of years ago, there's so many more electric mowers now.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool. So you're going to get yourself an electric mower.
I'm going to. Not this month, because, extenuating circumstances.
And you can just borrow mine for the month.
And I can borrow yours for the month.
Yeah. Get a real good feel for it.
It's good to have a good friend.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
So I think we're on to Crazy Tech.
Crazy Tech.
And I think this time I'm going to let you go first.
Okay. Techie, 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 can't you see? Sometimes I think that you're so crazy, and I just love your flashy ways. Simplify my life and work so great.
Oh my God, yes. That was Notorious B.I.G.
That totally was.
Oh man, I am better at this than I thought.
Can you guess what I was listening to on the way to work this morning?
Awesome. I like that one.
So there's been... I'm a documentary geek, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love Nova. I have the TV Guide app on my phone just to tell me when Nova and when Nature come on PBS.
Okay.
And it's like 7 o'clock on Wednesdays, but I forget.
Yeah.
And so
busy.
'Cause life.
Yeah.
And there's what was I thinking about? There's this guy. His name's David Pogue, and years ago, I saw this documentary on super batteries.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks to Jay Leno in it, and they talk about how in New York City, way back in the day, there were electric cars, but something happened, politics probably, I don't remember. But anyway, electric cars went to the wayside, and combustion engines came. And if not for that change, we might all be driving electric cars anyway.
Right.
But anyway, while he's going through this...
In another parallel universe, we are.
Right.
Yeah.
What was that effect called?
Mandela.
Yeah, Mandela affected us, and now we don't drive electric cars. Except now we're starting to again.
Yeah. Soon we'll just automatically... everybody will have an electric car, and we'll just think it's normal, but that's because of the Mandela effect.
Right. So, currently, lithium-ion is the best bang for your buck in a battery.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember Samsung, but lithium-ion has its problems.
Yeah.
If you puncture, crush, anything, if anything happens to them, they like to catch on fire.
That's why they don't let you carry super big batteries on an airplane.
Right.
That's why a lot of these devices are limited on how big of a battery they can put in them.
Right. So what happens in a lithium-ion battery is you have your 2 poles, and in between them is an electrolyte that keeps the charges from running back and forth within the battery.
Gatorade? Is Gatorade in my battery?
Usually like a saltwater substance, which salt is an electrolyte, but in lithium-ion batteries, that liquid is flammable, extremely flammable.
Yeah.
And so what can happen is, they call them dendrites, as you charge and recharge and discharge a battery, sometimes the electrons get stuck to one pole, and they grow these fingers out, and when they cross over and make connection with the other side, they catch on fire on their own.
Oh.
Because they've short-circuited.
Okay.
When you puncture, the same thing happens.
Okay.
They instantly connect with each other.
Yeah.
So this guy has created a solid-state plastic electrolyte that you can cut with scissors or stab holes in or stomp on, and the power keeps flowing.
Wow.
And it doesn't catch on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think of like hard drives.
Okay.
So a spinny hard drive is fragile.
Yeah.
A solid-state hard drive is not as fragile.
Right, you can shake it and it's not going to mess it up.
Right. And so you have this solid-state electrolyte. It's a special kind of plastic, but it makes everything more stable. And like I said, this is from several years ago. I've watched this documentary 3 or 4 times, but when I started thinking about batteries, I started thinking about that. And I was like, that's so cool. And as he's ending that interview, because there's like 6 interviews within this episode.
Yeah.
As he's ending that interview, he goes, so why aren't we doing this? And he goes, of course we need more testing.
Right.
We need reliability and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
He ran an iPad with it.
Oh.
I mean, he's got one big enough to run an iPad.
Wow.
But he said, really, I just need someone to partner with me that wants to scale this up.
Yeah.
And so,
So there's something out there.
Who knows? But there are things out there, and there are people working on this stuff, trying to make it safer, trying to make it better.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, that's really cool. I've heard of a lot of different battery technologies that are like kind of hopeful for the future to like make them super powerful and stuff. And you hear about them, and you never see them go to production. I don't know what's causing it, but what I found interesting, and you showed me this clip, is a guy literally took a pair of scissors and started cutting this battery off from the back of the battery, and it still worked.
Yeah.
It still lit up the light that was sitting there being powered by this battery until he cut it down to a very, very small point, and then it just stopped lighting the light. The battery didn't explode.
No.
This guy's holding this battery in his hand, cutting it with scissors, and it's safely, still working.
Yeah. And in the same clip, they show someone with a very long pole poking a nail into a lithium-ion battery. And by the way, this is still a lithium-ion battery.
Yeah, that's
You still
cool.
get all of the great benefits of the lithium and ion.
Yeah.
But it's safe.
That's cool. I'm hoping that down the road that this type of stuff comes around and we see more of it.
Yeah. So what's your crazy tech?
My crazy tech. I do some videos.
Vidges?
Yeah, I like to do the videos on the mountain bike. Well, one of the problems with videoing on the mountain bike is it's rough. It's very, very rough terrain. And so a lot of times you get shaky videos, and you can watch the videos where you see people and the camera's just bouncing up and down, and they're super excited. I'm going to look like I'm a Red Bull champion.
Right.
And doing these jumps.
And you get sick watching their video.
Yeah, it's just super rough. Well, there's this thing called a gimbal. A 3-way gimbal. And you attach your camera to it. They come in different sizes, from handheld to wearable gimbals, and you can attach phones and GoPros and other different action cameras to them. And essentially what this thing does is it smooths everything out. It takes all 3 axes and basically uses motors and allows the camera to flow smoothly. So whenever you see somebody running, like in a movie, if it's in a chase scene, there's more than likely somebody who's holding the camera has like some type of a gimbal.
A big one.
A big gimbal.
Yeah.
And it's basically smoothing it out. The camera is level, smooth, focused forward.
Right.
But the gimbal and the guy or the person is going all over the place.
Right.
It just holds it steady.
So they used to have to build like long railroad tracks and put the camera on wheels and all that to keep it smooth. But yeah, now someone can just have this thing strapped to their chest.
Yep.
And yeah, just point forward.
Yeah, it's really cool. And this technology's come a long way where they make them compact enough to where you can put them on an action camera chest mount, where you normally mount a GoPro for biking, and then you can mount the GoPro to it and you can go biking and get pretty smooth footage smooth enough that you can actually utilize and not have to run through software for editing out any of the motion and stuff.
Nice.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. They start around $200 for some brands, and then you can go up to some nicer ones. Like there's a brand out there called Evo, which is a really nice brand, and I believe those start around $300, and they just smooth out your footage, and you don't have to use them just for like action sports. If you are doing like a vlog or you're on a vacation and you want to have that smooth picture,
just walking causes a ton.
Yes, you can get a gimbal and you can just walk with your camera and talk to it, or go through Disneyland or whatever, and your footage will be perfectly smooth.
To that end, my kids were standing up, talking, quote unquote, talking to each other and playing at the fireplace the other day, and I was filming them and I started laughing, and so partway through me filming my kids, I've got my camera just shaking up and down because I'm laughing.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas, if I had something like that,
it would stay steady.
You know, if it were a moment that I were like, oh, this is something that I want to capture in time, like, you know, grab that and super smooth.
Yeah. Now, with that being said, the software technology is getting there to where you don't need these things. But for right now, it is a nice thing to have if you're doing a lot of video footage.
Yeah.
So
you do.
I think in probably 5 years, it'll be software-wise affordable for everybody, or it'll be available on all of our phones to be super steady like that. But for now, I recommend it.
Nice.
It's a pretty cool tool.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that'll do it for us.
Yeah, I think that was pretty good.
Yeah.
We've gone battery crazy.
We have.
God, it's almost like we're nerding out on it.
It's fine.
It is fine.
It's a tech podcast
This
after
is
all.
fine.
This is fine.
I did want to say, don't forget about our giveaway for the SP Connect, SP Gadgets, iPhone XS Max case. Like we said in the weeks past, all you got to do is whenever this episode drops out on Twitter, go on there, make a comment, retweet, like it, and follow us. And you'll be entered in, and then we will announce the winner on the 25th of April.
Yeah, on that episode.
Yeah, and one other thing, I know you're going to get ready to tell everybody where they can find us, but I did want to say this. We are now on YouTube.
Yeah.
So you can find us on YouTube at LunchTimeTechTalk.
All one word.
LT3 is at the end of it. I think if you just search for Lunchtime Tech Talk, you can find it. But if you see LT3 at the end of it, you know it's us. You'll know our logo. You can listen to this stuff. There's no visual.
Right.
There's like a little, take that back. There's like a little sound wave thingy.
Sure.
But you can listen to us on YouTube now.
Nice.
Well, where else can they find us, Jed?
You can find us on the web at Lunchtime Tech Talk. There you can browse show notes and look at blog posts, and you can also listen to the episode from there. It'll take you to Podbean or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And while you're at Apple Podcasts, I want you to like us. What's like called? I want you to rate us.
Rate us. Yeah, rate us. That's really important.
I want you to rate us and subscribe. The subscribe really helps. The rate really helps. If you want to leave us a review, you can do that too. We'll totally read that.
Yeah, love it.
You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Lunchtime Tech Talk. You can find us on Twitter at Lunchtime Tech T1. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at MSU Mac. That's MSU MACC. Mike. Where you at?
You can find me at Twitter at run_bike_Mike. And you can also find me on Instagram at RunBikeMike and my YouTube channel, RunBikeMike.
All right. Thanks for having lunch with us.
Yeah. Bye.
We out.